August 23, 2021, 12:14 p.m. A male lion stands at the entrance of a hyena den in the southern Serengeti in full daylight, at the hour when lions typically rest and hyenas typically retreat underground to avoid the heat. He is not resting. Behind him, 3 adult hyenas lie motionless in the dirt outside the den entrance. A 4th attempts to flee across open ground and does not make it 40 meters. The lion weighs 221 kilograms. His mane is dense and dark, the kind that researchers at the Serengeti Carnivore Interaction Project associate with sustained high aggression and elevated testosterone over an extended period. His muzzle carries a permanent scar pattern, 11 distinct puncture marks in a configuration that the project's veterinary consultant has matched to spotted hyena bite radius. His right foreleg shows a healed fracture that's set slightly crooked. He hunts hyenas in broad daylight at the hour they feel safest, in a behavioral pattern that exists nowhere else in 24 years of the project's documented lion behavior. His name is Kisasi. It means revenge in Swahili. The rangers who named him did not choose the word lightly. They chose it because everything he has done since the age of 5 months has pointed toward this exact kind of afternoon. 37 months earlier, Kisasi weighed 11.6 kilograms. He was 5 months old. He was pressed into tall grass 10 meters from a clearing where 19 hyenas surrounded his mother, watching her dragged away by her hind legs across 1.4 kilometers of open ground while he remained completely silent, completely still, watching the only thing keeping him alive disappear into a clan den he would never see her leave. This is not a story about a lion defeating other lions. Every wildlife channel tells those stories. This is a story about an apex predator who was humiliated at the most vulnerable point in his entire life by something biology says he should never have to fear. About what 3 years of carrying that specific humiliation can build inside an animal when it refuses to let the memory go cold. It starts with an abduction that should not have been possible.
The Mvuvumera Pride held 76 square kilometers of territory at the boundary between savanna grassland and dense acacia woodland in the southern Serengeti study zone. 4 adult females, 1 dominant male the research team designated M Prime, holding the territory alone for 2 years after his coalition partner was killed in a buffalo encounter in 2016. 6 cubs across 2 litters. The Mvuvumera hyena clan had occupied the eastern margin of Mvuvumera territory since at least 2012, according to the Serengeti Carnivore Interaction Project's monitoring records. 19 members at peak documented strength in 2018, making it one of the largest clans recorded in the southern Serengeti study zone. Relations between the clan and the pride had followed the standard pattern documented across thousands of lion-hyena interactions: territorial tension, occasional carcass disputes, mutual avoidance during active hunting periods. Nothing in the project's 7 years of monitoring this specific relationship predicted what happened on the night of August 11, 2018. 3 days earlier, M Prime had sustained a serious leg injury during a territorial dispute with a neighboring coalition. The wound, documented by camera trap MV3 on August 8th, showed deep lacerations along his left hindquarter that significantly impaired his mobility. For the first time in 2 years, the Mvuvumera Pride's primary deterrent against predation pressure was compromised. August 11, 2018, 9:47 p.m. A lioness designated MVF2 by the research team, traveling with her 5-month-old cub approximately 600 meters from the pride's core resting site, encountered the Ondo hyena clan at a disputed water source at the territory's eastern boundary. What followed is documented in Incident Report SCIP-2018-0811, a record that the project's lead researcher has described in subsequent publications as the most behaviorally significant lion-hyena interaction in the database's 24-year history. Not because of its violence, though it was extreme, because of its outcome. The lioness, alone and without coalition support due to M''s injury, was surrounded by the full clan within minutes of the encounter beginning. The research team's reconstructed timeline, built from acoustic data and a partial camera trap angle 80 meters from the engagement site, indicates the confrontation lasted approximately 14 minutes before the clan gained sufficient numerical advantage to overwhelm her. She did not die at the water source. She was alive when the clan began moving her, dragged by multiple members across terrain that the GPS tracking on 2 collared clan members documented as a 1.4-kilometer route toward the Ondo Den system. This behavior, a clan transporting a still-living lioness across a significant distance rather than feeding at the kill site, has no equivalent precedent in the project's database or in the broader published literature that the research team reviewed in preparing their subsequent analysis. Her body was never recovered intact. Partial remains consistent with her identification were located near the Ondo Den system 11 days later, in a condition the project's veterinary consultant assessed as insufficient for complete forensic reconstruction of the cause of death. Her cub was found by rangers 31 hours after the initial encounter, 1.6 kilometers from the Den system, dehydrated in a state the field notes describe as behavioral shutdown. Heart rate 201 beats per minute. He did not respond to ranger approach for nearly 40 minutes. They named him Kisasi, not as a prediction, as an acknowledgement of what they had just watched a 5-month-old animal endure without making a single sound. Dr. Marchetti's preliminary report, filed within the week, included an observation that would later be cited repeatedly as the project revised its understanding of what had happened. In 24 years of monitoring lion-hyena interactions across the southern Serengeti study zone, no recorded incident had ever resulted in a hyena clan successfully removing an adult lioness while she remained alive. Clans typically disengage from confrontations with healthy adult lionesses well before the point of physical overwhelm. The risk-reward calculation simply does not favor sustained engagement against an opponent capable of inflicting serious injury even while losing. What made the Ondo clan's behavior on August 11, 2018 so significant wasn't cruelty, it was confidence. 19 members against 1 injured pride's worth of deterrence had apparently recalibrated in real time exactly how much risk the situation actually carried. You think the worst part is the night itself. It is not. What came next was 1,108 days of an apex predator learning to fear, study, and ultimately dismantle something his entire biology told him he was supposed to never need to think about twice.
Subscribe right now, because what Kisasi becomes over the next 3 years has forced the Serengeti Carnivore Interaction Project to revise their published models on lion-hyena competitive dynamics twice. I need you here for every single chapter of how that happened. The MV Fumiera pride did not formally dissolve, but M''s injury combined with the loss of MVF2 destabilized the group significantly. The remaining females relocated their cubs to the western edge of the territory, away from the eastern boundary where the Ondoro clan held den access. Kisasi, orphaned, and too young to be reliably absorbed into the remaining pride structure, drifted to the periphery within 3 weeks. The SCIP database records survival rates for orphaned cubs in this specific scenario, displaced from pride structure with an active hyena clan controlling a portion of their natal territory at approximately 2%. The interaction between predation risk from hyenas and the loss of pride protection compounds in a way that the project's statistical models treat as functionally near certain mortality. What would you do at 5 months old, 11.6 kilograms, having just watched the only thing protecting you be taken by the one predator you are supposed to dominate without difficulty? Kisasi's first behavioral adaptation, documented across 11 camera trap stations from August through December 2018,
was a movement pattern that inverted typical lion-hyena avoidance dynamics. Standard cub behavior in proximity to a hyena clan is maximal avoidance, distance maintained at all costs. Kisasi maintained proximity, always from elevated positions or dense cover, always with multiple escape routes identified before settling into an observation position, but proximity nonetheless. He was watching the Ondoro clan the way no documented cub had watched a hyena clan before. His survival mechanics during this period were brutal and improvised. He scavenged from kills the Ondoro clan had abandoned, timing his approach to the narrow windows between clan feeding and clan departure. He ate insects, small reptiles, and carrion in states of decomposition that would be rejected by a healthy adult lion. He vomited regularly. He ate again. By December 2018, 4 months after the abduction, Kisasi weighed 19 kilograms. He should have weighed 39. His growth plates showed measurable delay. But the camera trap data from this period documents something the research team did not understand until much later. Kisasi was not simply surviving near the Ondoro clan. He was building a map of every individual member, every den entrance, every hunting pattern, every hierarchy relationship within a social structure that most lions never bother to understand because they have never needed to.
Spotted hyena clans operate on a complex social hierarchy maintained through vocalization, scent marking, and ritualized greeting behaviors that researchers have spent decades decoding through dedicated study. Kisasi, from a position of cover 300 to 600 meters from the Orondo den system, spent 10 months doing the same work with no training and no academic framework, purely through repetition and consequence. Have you ever had to learn the exact internal structure of the group that destroyed your family simply because understanding them was the only way you would ever be able to do anything about it? That was Kisasi's education for nearly a year. Camera trap analysis covering December 2018 through October 2019 shows Kisasi's observation positions correlating precisely with shifts in Orondo clan hierarchy. When a dominant female died from injuries sustained in a territorial dispute with a neighboring clan in March 2019, Kisasi's monitoring intensified around the den for the following 11 days, the exact period during which hierarchy restructuring typically occurs in spotted hyena social systems. He cataloged individual hyenas by behavioral signature long before he had the size or strength to act on any of it. Which members hunted alone versus in groups, which held disputed status within the clan and therefore were isolated more often, which patrolled the den perimeter at which hours. The same systematic intelligence gathering that lion researchers spend careers developing, a starving, orphaned cub assembled through nothing but obsessive, silent observation. Meanwhile, his body was finally responding to slightly improved caloric access as he grew large enough to compete more effectively for scavenged remains. By 10 months, he weighed 41 kilograms. By 12 months, 58 kilograms. His mane had not yet emerged, preserving a degree of size ambiguity that kept him below the threat threshold of adult hyenas doing distance assessment. His first independent kill came in November 2019 at 15 months old. Not a hyena, a juvenile warthog, tracked for 14 hours and taken through an ambush sequence that the research team's analysis describes as unusually patient for a young male lion this age, more consistent with solitary felid hunting strategy than typical young male lion behavior. He fed for 6 hours, cached the remainder, and returned to his observation position relative to the Orondo den before sunrise. He killed, he ate, he went back to watching them. The pattern that had defined his entire first year continued without interruption. At 16 months, Kisasi's mane began emerging. The ambiguity that had protected him for over a year was ending. A young male with a visible mane registers differently to every other predator assessing risk in the landscape, including hyena clans that had previously dismissed him as irrelevant.
The shift forced an immediate change in his observation methodology, where he had once been able to hold positions as close as 300 meters from the den without triggering a defensive response. The Orondo clan's behavior toward him changed measurably within weeks of his mane becoming visible. Increased vocalization when his scent was detected, sentries posted at distances that had not previously required monitoring. He had spent over a year as something the clan did not need to think about. He was becoming, for the first time since the abduction, something they were beginning to watch back. He had learned everything he could learn from proximity. What came next required distance and a body capable of using everything he now understood.
Kisasi left the Mvuvumera territory periphery in January 2020, moving south into a contested nomadic corridor where he would spend the next 22 months. Unlike his previous year of study and observation, this phase was pure physical construction. He needed mass, he needed combat experience, he needed a body capable of executing what 18 months of intelligence gathering had made him capable of planning. The SCIP's GPS network and ranger reports document 24 confirmed confrontations involving Kisasi between February 2020 and October 2021, the majority against rival young males in the contested corridor rather than coalition adults. He won 17, lost 4, 3 were inconclusive. Every engagement, win or loss, was absorbed as data. His most significant defeat came in July 2020 against a pair of older nomadic males who caught him at a kill site at 1:30 a.m. The engagement lasted 96 seconds and left him with a fractured right foreleg, the injury that would heal slightly crooked and remain visible for the rest of his life. He spent 16 days in dense cover recovering, feeding minimally, moving only when necessary. Those 16 days reinforced something he had already begun to understand from his year of hyena observation. Patience produces better outcomes than aggression in almost every scenario where the opponent has any numerical or physical advantage. He began applying the same principle to lion confrontations that he had spent his first year applying to hyena observation. Wait, assess, strike only when the advantage was completely his. By October 2021, Kisasi was 3 years old and weighed 218 kilograms. His mane had grown full and dark. His muzzle, by this point, carried the first of the puncture scars that would eventually mark him as a specialist. A confrontation with a young hyena clan member in the nomadic corridor in September 2021, the first hyena engagement of his adult life, left a wound pattern that healed into the distinctive marks researchers would later use to identify him at distance. Rangers in the southern corridor had started calling him Mwindaji wa Fisi, hunter of hyenas, not as a compliment, as a warning to anyone studying clan territories in the area to watch for an unusual pattern of hyena mortality. What the 22 nomadic months had given him beyond raw physical mass was something the research team would only fully appreciate in hindsight. Every confrontation, lion or hyena, had been treated by Kisasi as another data point in the same ongoing project he had begun at 5 months in tall grass near a contested water source. How does a numerically or physically superior opponent actually behave under pressure? Where does its confidence break down? What does it do when the rules it expects to apply suddenly do not? He had spent 3 years answering that question against rival males. He was about to answer it against the species that started it all. He was ready. And in October 2021, he turned north, back toward the territory where a clan of 19 had taken his mother 3 years earlier, carrying a body built for exactly this and a memory map of their entire social structure that no amount of time had degraded.
When Kisasi reached the eastern boundary of former Mvuvumera territory in November 2021, the Ondo clan he found had changed significantly from the social structure he had spent his first year mapping. Membership had fluctuated. The matriarch who had led the abduction in 2018 had died of natural causes in 2020, but the den system remained in the same location,
and a substantial portion of the clan's adult population were animals Kisasi had already catalogued as cubs or juveniles during his year of observation. He did not attack immediately. He spent 4 weeks re-establishing his behavioral map of the clan, updating 3 years of accumulated knowledge against current reality. He confirmed den entrance positions, he re-identified hierarchy relationships, he tracked hunting party composition across multiple nights to establish current patrol patterns. What he was doing differently from every previous engagement in his life was operating during daylight hours, specifically the hours between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., when hyena clan activity drops to its lowest point, and most members retreat underground or into shaded rest positions. This is precisely the window when lions, biologically, are least active and most likely to be resting themselves. Kisasi inverted his own species' typical behavior to exploit a vulnerability window that nothing in either species' standard competitive dynamics accounts for. On December 9, 2021, Kisasi made his first move, not against the den, against an isolated adult male hyena identified during his observation as holding low clan status, frequently solitary, patrolling a peripheral boundary segment alone during midday hours, the kind of target that would not immediately alert the full clan. He removed 3 peripheral clan members over the following 6 weeks using the identical methodology each time. Daylight hours, isolated targets, no engagement with the main den population. By late January 2022, the Ondo clan's remaining membership had begun showing the SCIP's documented stress indicators for predation pressure, increased den-bound time, reduced territorial range, more frequent vocalization during daylight hours that the project's acoustic monitoring interpreted as anxiety signaling rather than standard communication. The research team's analysis of this 6-week period notes something they had not previously needed a framework for: a predator deliberately selecting low-value targets first, not for caloric return, but for the psychological effect their disappearance would have on a clan's collective threat assessment. Each removed hyena was individually a minor loss to clan cohesion. Cumulatively, 3 disappearances within 6 weeks, all occurring during hours the clan had never needed to consider dangerous, produced a level of behavioral disruption that the project's models would normally associate with the loss of far more significant members. Kisasi was not attacking the clan, he was making them afraid of the hours they had always considered safe.
February 2022. Kisasi escalated. 6 weeks of removing peripheral members had reduced the Ondo clan from an estimated 16 active adults to 11. The research team's analysis indicates the clan's hierarchy had begun showing structural strain, consistent with population pressure responses documented in other spotted hyena studies under sustained predation. Reduced cooperative hunting efficiency, increased internal status conflicts, a clan eating itself from the inside as the external pressure mounted. Camera trap MV-19, positioned near the den entrance's primary access, captured Kisasi's direct approach to the den at 12:31 p.m. on February 14, 2022, exactly 3 years and 6 months after his mother was taken to this same location. 3 adult hyenas were positioned outside the den entrance, the minimum guard presence the clan maintained during daylight hours after the previous 6 weeks of losses. Kisasi did not approach from cover. He walked directly toward the entrance in open daylight, a behavior that violated every standard threat assessment expectation the hyenas held about lion activity during this period. The engagement lasted 6 minutes and 12 seconds. 2 of the 3 guard hyenas were killed at the entrance. The third fled into the den system itself, an enclosed space where the research team's protocol would normally consider further pursuit too risky for any predator to attempt. Kisasi followed. What happened inside the den over the following minutes is not fully documented, as no camera trap angle covered the interior chambers. Acoustic data from the surface microphone array recorded vocalizations consistent with confrontation for approximately 3 minutes. Kisasi emerged at 12:51 p.m., visibly injured along his left shoulder, and did not return to the den entrance for the remainder of that day. He had not eliminated the clan. He had made its core sanctuary, the one place where hyenas have never had to consider a lion as a threat, no longer safe. Over the following 4 months, the Ondo clan's territory contracted by an estimated 60%. Members dispersed individually rather than relocating as a cohesive unit, a pattern the research team had not previously documented as a clan collapse response to sustained single predator pressure. By June 2022, camera trap activity at the original den system had dropped to near zero. The clan that had taken Kisasi's mother in 2018 had, by every metric the project tracks, ceased to function as a coherent social unit. Kisasi did not rowl over a body like lions do at the end of a territorial conflict. There was no single dramatic kill that ended this. There was only an accumulation, clan member by clan member, daylight hour by daylight hour, until the thing that had humiliated him at 5 months old simply stopped existing in any form that could be tracked.
What Kisasi established in the southern Serengeti following the Ondo clan's dissolution became something the Serengeti Carnivore Interaction Project had no existing category for, not a territorial reign in the standard sense, a standing predation pressure against every hyena clan operating within his expanded range, maintained through the same daylight methodology he had developed against the Ondo specifically. By 2023, 3 additional hyena clans within Kisasi's expanded range had documented population reductions directly attributable to his hunting activity. The project's updated behavioral models, published in 2024, formally recognize what they term specialist interspecies predation, a behavioral category previously considered vanishingly rare in wild lion populations. The broader ecological impact of this specialization has become its own subject of ongoing study within the project. Hyena clan density across Kisasi's expanded range has dropped by an estimated 34% since 2022, a shift significant enough that the research team has begun modeling secondary effects on mesopredator populations and carcass competition dynamics across the entire southern study zone. A single animal's 3-year response to one traumatic encounter has measurably altered the predator ecology of a region spanning well beyond his own territorial boundaries. Kisasi is 8 years old now. His muzzle carries 11 documented hyena bite scars in a permanent pattern researchers use as a primary identification marker. His right foreleg remains slightly crooked from the fracture sustained in 2020. His mane, thick and dark, covers shoulders that have absorbed more interspecies combat than any lion in the project's recorded history. He still hunts during the hours other lions sleep. He still maintains observation behaviors toward every hyena clan within range, the same patient cataloging intelligence work he began at 5 months in tall grass, 10 meters from his mother's final moments. And every year, around the second week of August, camera trap data shows his movement pattern shifting toward the original drag route, the 1.4 kilometers between the old water source and the site of the former Ondo den system. He walks it slowly, the research team has noted, at an hour close to when the abduction occurred in 2018. Nobody has been able to confirm whether this is deliberate memory or coincidental patrol timing. The project has stopped trying to settle the question. Dr. Marchetti, in the closing section of her 2024 paper, included a line that did not appear in any of her previous publications about Kisasi.
She wrote that after 6 years of observing this single animal, she had come to believe that the most dangerous trait a predator can develop is not strength and not even memory on its own. It is the capacity to convert a single hour of total powerlessness into a permanent structural feature of how it understands the world afterward. Kisasi was powerless once, for exactly as long as 19 animals dragged his mother out of his life. He has spent every day since making absolutely certain that nothing resembling that hour can ever happen to him again, and in doing so has reshaped an entire predator population's relationship with fear. The Ondo clan took his mother. They took her in front of him when he was too small to do anything except watch and remain silent. They took the one thing his entire biology told him should never be vulnerable to something his species is supposed to dominate without difficulty. He spent 3 years making sure that humiliation became their extinction. If this story stayed with you, subscribe right now, because next week I am bringing you the story of a lioness who fought off a crocodile twice her size to save her cubs during a river crossing, sustaining injuries that should have been fatal, and what she became in the 3 years after. You do not want to miss it.